All right. We are live, and thank you if you're catching this live, and if you're coming in later, then fantastic. Glad to catch you for the replay. Yeah, so I'm just going to wait a few minutes for a couple more people to show up here. We got looks like about 9 people watching, and so we're just going to wait, let it hit double digits. In the meantime, if you want to say hi in the chat, and I will give you a shout out as we're just waiting. Getting up to 10 folks. Oh, it dropped back down to 8. No. Yeah, so we're going to talk about a lot of different things today about what's going on with the shadow work, because there's just some absolutely nutty stuff going on. I'm just like, it's very strange for me to have been given a lot of these messages, a couple years ago, even 3 years ago in some cases, and then to see things sort of in reality matching what the angels have told me is pretty nutty. And so if you're new to the channel, as always, I recommend that what I talk about in this channel will make a whole lot more sense if you watch the Shadow Wars series, where I talk about this power struggle going on between 2 different quite ruthless factions that I call the Malachians, which is the old guard. They've been running the show for the past 6,000 years. The infamous black sorcerers of Babylon, essentially known by many names throughout history. The Rod Knights, the Tyrians, the Canaanites, although not all Canaanites or Phoenicians are bad, just like any other group. It's a mixed group. And of course, most famously as the Venetian black nobility. And how that group is in a tremendous power struggle right now with this great changing of the ages as we move from the ascending Kali Yuga into the Dwapara Yuga. This power struggle is beginning to emerge from the shadows, where it's been basically since around 2020 when things seem to really kick off. Although there's been certainly other times throughout history where you've seen this fight between this Luciferian consciousness, which wants to improve the material well-being of mankind. It's very humanist, meaning it's human ego-centered and replacing God with mankind and science, versus the Malachians, who just want to destroy and kill and get rid of God altogether and invert nature at every turn. The Luciferians want to improve upon God's design and show how they're kind of better, and that their way of doing things is better. And it really puts ego, and I sometimes say that the Malachians have self-hatred as their core trait, and the Luciferians have narcissism as their core trait. And then there's the other main group of folks, which is the Most High aligned people. And these can be people who are either currently aligned with the Most High, or they are aspirationally moving in that direction. And so if you're not familiar with these terms, I super duper recommend that you watch the Shadow Wars series, and then you can come back and catch this on the replay, or, I'll be streaming for the next hour and a half. If you just watch episode 1, an overview of the factions, it will really help you to understand what I'm talking about on this channel. And I think you will find many people who are become familiarized with these concepts find that it's very much something that makes the world make sense right now in a way that really most other frames don't. Certainly this black and white, there's good guys and there's bad guys. There's white hats versus black hats, which really breaks down even under very simple analysis. When you have this triplicity of consciousness, I think it really helps the world make a lot more sense. And so I'm just going to switch gears and give a shout out to a few people. If you'd like a shout out, please say something in the comments. If you're new to the channel, I'll say, hey, feel free to ask questions. I'm going to be answering questions in the second half. I'm just writing that real quick, answering questions in the second half. After a break, all super chats and super stickers will be given priority to get answered. All right. And so I'm going to real quick give a shout out to a few people, and then I'm going to kind of jump into the meat of the show here. So what's up, Brent? Good to see you, brother. Greetings from Chico State. Yeah, and an early live. What a treat. Awesome. Yeah, I was actually supposed to interview Michael Laflemme, who he had actually said that he was a fan of the channel and would love to come on a show and talk about his new book on Atlantis back in early January. And we had a back and forth, and my life's been absolutely nutty, and more on that in a minute. And so I dropped the ball when we were going back and forth, and we scheduled to do an interview about his book on Atlantis, which I'm super excited about today. But then he had to reschedule because of some technical difficulty stuff with a router. So I'm really looking forward to that interview. And I'm going to need to come up with some content for the next few weeks because I'm doing something personally that's a pretty big deal. And so I need to have sort of some automatic upload stuff. But yeah, I saw him on Sam Tripoli. Some people said Sam was talking about the channel again. And so I tuned in and I was like, wow, this guy's really smart. This Michael guy's really smart. Wow, he's like really well versed in a variety of things and has a lot of nuance and intelligence. This is episode 750 of Tinfoil Hat. And then I go, man, something about this really rings a faint bell. Michael Laflemme, that sounds familiar, in Atlantis. Why do I? Oh my God, it's that dude. I bet I didn't get back to him. And sure enough, I like connected with them and I had totally dropped the ball. This is why I am starting to I have someone who's being an executive assistant. I'll give her a shout out. Hey, Elle, who is right now, out of the goodness of her heart, she's helping me on a volunteer basis. And then I look forward to when I'll be able to pay her in the not too distant future. There's been a lot of amazing people really helping me just kind of out of the goodness of their hearts, mostly former, I should say, angelic magic students, and like there's the new mini video on the virtues, and Clint Corley, a former angelic magic student, did the editing on that, and I really liked it, and it's a great size for like putting it on TikTok and stuff like that. So I'm working on getting a forum so people who are interested in the topics on this channel can come together to talk about things like conspiracy theories from a more, like being discerning, right? Like avoiding the fake conspiracy theories in favor of the real deal, right? And talking about Golden Age enclaves, talking about angelic magic, talking about whatever kind of thing, and really letting an actual community form where there can be, in-depth discussions and also a fun live chat. And I'm in the process of getting that up and running, and probably should have that in the next month or two. And I really look forward to that because there's just a really great community that's sort of forming around this channel and some of the topics that are discussed on this channel, which is really humbling and awesome for me. So I'm just going to give a few more shout outs, and then I will answer questions in the second half, and then I'm going to just launch in the show here. So, hey, Deslock, thanks for putting the time. The content, very interesting, incorporating your thoughts into geopolitics. Oh yeah, there's going to be a lot on that today, a lot. And yeah, there's going to be a lot in that. So great to see. I don't remember seeing your name before. So it's awesome to have you on here. You have a cool little symbol up there. I don't know if it means you're like a paid subscriber or whatever. My apologies. I'm just not familiar with that symbol. So cool and nice to see you, Deslock. Hey, what's up, Sue? There in Utah. Yeah, I got a number of folks there in Utah. P. Scott, hey Ian from Ireland, love the show. And P. Scott's one of these. Another thing that seems to coalesce around this channel to a kind of absurd degree is people who are 33 life path folks. The aforementioned executive assistant extraordinaire L is a 33 life path. P. Scott is a 33 life path. And there's someone else who was saying that. And 33 life path just means like when you condense your whole birthday, it comes to 33, and it's a very powerful incarnation for you. And I made an error in the previous show, which just goes to show I make mistakes, right? And that is that I said that there's 4 master numbers in numerology. 11, that is correct. 22, that is also correct. 33, that is also correct. Where when numbers reduce to that, you stop reducing. But there's one that's sort of a tweener. It's not really a master number, but it's 28. When something reduces to 28, it then reduces again to 1, but it's a wealth signature 1. And so I called it a master number. So Alex, if you're watching, I hope that you can raise your librarian glasses from your nose to look at me and say, Ian, return that book, and raise them back to the proper position now that I have corrected that. Let's see. Boomerang Farm, greetings from the UK. Great to catch you live. Keep up the great work. Oh, this is fun. Maybe this is a good time. maybe this is a good time of day because it occurs to me that it's not too terribly late in Europe. And it's kind of morning time in Australia, and it's an okay time for me. This might be a good time. Maybe I should be looking at doing 3:30 live chats because I think it might kind of be that sweet spot. I don't have a lot of people in the Middle East currently, so missing that whole section of the world doesn't cost me a lot. I do have a few viewers from India, probably thanks to the illustrious Bibudev Misra, but maybe it's a good time in the future. Can't always do it, but maybe can give it a shot. Hey, Ian, right on. What's up, Food Hoarder? Pathfinder says that's an awesome idea. Oh, yeah, it's definitely going to happen. And like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have like a public and freely available forum. And then I'm going to have like some kind of very minor paywall aspect to things to talk about certain things. Just because even if someone's paying $1 a month, like they reconsider trolling and being a jerk when they're even putting $1 a month, which is a fairly token amount, you know. So I want to have something public, but then I probably will have some kind of thing just to pay for the cost of the server to like have like sort of deeper access. So that way, you know, there can be discussion without trolls and idiots and like whatever kind of thing. So, hey, Kat, nice to see you. Let's see. So anyways, it's just kind of like exploding over here on the side. I'll just give Bankster Rap a shout out real quick. Paid here on YouTube first and converted to Patreon. Thank you so much. I'm pretty awful, and I really need to change the Patreon description because I basically don't do those things other than if people are in the live chat. I remember to do shout outs. This is why Ian needs L's help because I'm not, organization is not really my strong suit. And as I've moved more into a mystical function in life, I've really like started to not grasp things as well. Okay, so we got a great number of people, 23, Skidoo, pretty cool little Robert Anton Wilson energy there, which I like. One of my favorite authors and weird, brilliant, multifaceted intellectuals, Robert Anton Wilson, the Illuminatus trilogy. Must read. It will literally change your brain architecture and make magic more accessible to you. I'm not even kidding. It'll change the way you look at the world. Very, very bizarre book, but well worth reading. So let me put the one thing I said back up, and then we'll get going. Okay, so I got a comment that I want to respond to because I just thought it was really interesting, and it made me realize that there was something in there. First of all, it caused something to rise up in me. And that's always worthy of noting when something happens and you're like, you find you're irritated or you find that something, you know, triggers is too strong of a word. That word's really been diluted to almost become meaningless. You know, like truly triggered means that you're having, and I experienced this as someone with complex PTSD, to be truly triggered means that you actually are experiencing some level of like dissociation or like uncontrollable rage or fear or something comes up, right? So I don't mean it in that sense, but I mean as in to an action that causes something else to occur. Whenever something triggers you to have some kind of emotional response, it's worth a look at because usually it means there's some self-acceptance to do or unintegrated shadow. And see, the thing is that works both ways. And the universe, I've discovered over the years, really has no fat on it. What I mean is when you and someone else have a butt heads interaction, there's usually a spiritual lesson for both of you. Once in a while, you butt heads with someone and it's just the other person's projecting and it's nothing to do with you. And maybe the lesson is just to move on, right? But a lot of times when two people butt heads, there's spiritual work on both ends. And I think that kind of was what happened here. And basically this person said, wow, Ian, you're just really always bragging so much about how you're raking in the dough. Well, first of all, I'm doing well now for the first time in my life. And if I continue at the current pace, I'll be completely out of debt. I'll be able to buy a home for my family. I'll be able to do a lot of things I've wanted to do my whole life. And I'll be taking steps on the road towards being able to contribute towards the Golden Age Enclave. So I'm extremely happy about that. You know, I often talk about my story on this channel of how, you know, if you go back and watch early videos in this channel, they're live from my mom's basement. I was going through a divorce. I left a social work career that I had done for 17 years, plus a couple of years of doing paid contract writing. And and I was miserable. It was a soul-killing job. I actually had a nervous breakdown in 2018, 2019. I think it was 2018 that I had the nervous breakdown. It might have been 2019. But I had a full-blown nervous breakdown, which just really fried my neurological system. I think it actually really set me up for a lot of the spiritual transformation that's occurred over the past couple of years. But it was really devastating. It was around not being able to help my clients and having more work foisted on us social workers, and I just snapped. And like I've had a full blown breakdown, and I ended up having to quit that particular job. But I continued to, because I lacked self-worth and because I was frightened and thought that I didn't have anything to offer the world, which might sound funny to people who like this channel, but this is really what I thought. This is really what I was in. This was my lived experience. And so I ended up taking a lesser job that was maxed out. I was at the max cap for that level because I had been at a much higher level, and I went down to be like basically a glorified kind of secretary or something like that. And I did that for a little while. And that was in some ways even worse. It was a lot easier and not as stressful, but it was in some ways a lot worse. And so in 2020, I went through a divorce. Of course, pandemic happened. And I took a leap of faith and I quit my job after looking at my own astrological chart, Vedic astrology chart. I literally pulled the Fool card on Easter. And I was like, okay, I just need to take the leap of faith, Easter 2020, and I quit my job. And it was a really crazy move at the time because it seemed like no prospects. I didn't have, what an employer would want in terms of skill set. And it was just a very hard, very scary time. And it took me a long time to get traction, partially because one of the main things that I would discover and continue to discover I have to work through is self-worth stuff. When I was being abused when I was a child, right? Not by like my father, although he certainly didn't help my self-esteem or self-worth, but he did give me self-worth, like in a very old school masculine, born in the 40s in rural Montana, frickin' Russell Crowe fighting around the world dad that I had. Literally, he was fighting around the world back in the 60s, like a nut job. I'll have to do an episode on my dad sometime. He was a really remarkable man, but also a violent asshole. But no, the abusers the sexual abusers that were abusing me, when I was going through that, I got a lot of messaging about how I was damaged goods, and they did everything they could to destroy my sense of self-worth. And so one of the main things that has been part of this incredible transformation process that I've had happen with the angels is to step into my divine masculine, which means confidence, by the way, right? And it's so rare that we see the divine masculine. Like, does Aragorn strike you as someone who lacked confidence as he wades into the orc hordes and, charges right into the teeth of the army at Mordor? No, he has a very interesting balance of extreme confidence and an amazing humility. And that's what I strive towards. I'm not trying to say that like I'm at what Aragorn's level in Lord of the Rings. I wouldn't say that. I'm trying to embody that as much as possible. And so in order to have confidence, you have to also have self-worth. And as I've worked through self-worth healing, trigger alert, Brenda, because I'm just going to call you out. Then I've made a lot more money, and I've started to be very successful for the first time in my life. I've started to have recognition from others for the first time in my life. And so I've worked very hard, very, very hard over decades, actually, to accumulate the knowledge and the wisdom and the experiences that I've had. I didn't realize it was setting me up for where I'm at now, but I understand now that all this, what I thought was wasted time, doing deep dive conspiracy theory stuff after 9/11, going on the hippie trail, training with shamans, learning all sorts of esoteric stuff, just all the stuff that I've done in the past 23 years, I had no idea that it was preparing me for what I'm doing now. But it absolutely was. Learning Vedic astrology, being self-taught in that, starting to access past lives, all this kind of stuff. And so I was trying to, in the last episode, relay that I've had this remarkable transformation in my personal life, just as the angels told me, which seemed impossible when they told me this in 2021. It seemed utterly impossible that I could be working with very powerful and wealthy people, and yet it's happening. Okay. And so, first of all, I'm very proud of this accomplishment. And I believe that just as your accomplishments to be celebrated, I kind of want to celebrate this. It's been a long time coming. I was passed over for everything for decades. And many, many times I should have been given management positions and I didn't, right? And I'm glad, because that would have kept me stuck and safe in a safe sort of container, egoic container that would have been fine, and I would have been comfortable and not wanted to break out of it. So now that this change is happening, I've noticed that very often when I had, like, Monday was a fantastic day for me business-wise, and I also got a lot of people leaving angry comments on Facebook and on YouTube and elsewhere, people leaving angry comments about flat Earth. I'm defending the Jews, like those are two that I get very often. Bigoted Christians, right? That's kind of like the trifecta of my usual haters that I'm kind of used to and have thick skin. But because my experience with the prior teacher who blew up and is super famous now, I'm very worried about falling into the trap of ego and starting to swing my dick around, like, in a way that's not balanced or healthy at all. And so when Brenda called me out to say this, right, and then I said, wow, I'm like, that makes me sad. I was trying to illustrate that you should listen to the whole Shadow Wars thing, because if my life could change to that degree, like the angel said, therefore the Shadow Wars prophecies, namely that the Malachians are about to get their ass kicked, has a bit more oomph to it, right? Like, for me, it has all the oomph in the world, but perhaps others hearing it would A, be inspired by my story about how one can turn their life around, and B, would realize, wow, this Shadow Wars thing is legit. Like, the forces of darkness are not going to win, right? Like, we don't need to take the black pill. We can take the white pill. We can realize that there's going to be, like, these massive monumental changes happen and get excited about that. But see, what happened here was I triggered that person. They're not going to admit that. I'm sure they're going to leave an angry comment about it. And I decided that this person's done similar kind of things to me and on other people's page, and just kind of has a funny whiff to the ego, right? And I decided that I don't really feel like I want to be friends with this person. I don't feel supported by them, because as you level up, you'll get that crabs in a bucket phenomenon, where when you're about to get out, the other crab will try and grab you and pull you down, so not even so they could get out, but just they don't want you up above them. And they get triggered by that because they're comfy in their life, and they don't want to see that kind of thing, because then there's a challenge that maybe I could change my life too, but then I would have to come to grips with my shadow. I'd have to come to grips with all this stuff. And for me, so that was what it seems was happening on her end, was that she was uncomfortable about it, because she claimed that I'm just saying it nonstop. I think she's mistaking I'm working with higher level clients, so I'm going to close my astrology soon, for me talking all the time about how I'm doing so great, blah, 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 whatever. Well, part of it is I want to celebrate it. Part of it is I want to inspire others, which I have, to turn their life around, which some people who have worked with me or watched the channel have reported to me that they've started to take those steps. That's what I want. That's what I want. I want everybody watching this channel to start doing the internal transformation that occurred for me in order to step into their role, which will be unique and important for everyone as we move forward into this new Dwapara Yuga. And so when you're successful, shout it from the rooftops. Thump your chest. Be excited about it. Don't be a dick and start saying, I'm so much better than you, meow, 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 that kind of stuff. Don't be a dick about it. That's just moving from victim mentality and swinging over into arrogance, which is something that I'm worried about, because I watched that happen with someone as they became famous, and they were at a very similar level of, like, micro celebrity, whatever, in the spiritual world that I'm at currently. They were just a bit above where I'm at currently, and at where I know that I'm going very, very shortly. and they completely went off the rails. They completely went off the rails, and then it just became hollowed out and all about money and all this kind of stuff. And so I'm hyper vigilant for that. And so that triggered in me a response of, oh my God, is that happening for me? And I checked in with people I know, and they were like, no, that's not a you thing, that's a her thing. But then I realized this was actually a really useful teaching point in order to bring this point forward so people can see it and that they can think about it and reflect on their own lives and think that, you know, you'll feel tempted to not want to make those kind of big, bold changes that is going to actually change your life. But you have to make those big, bold changes in order to become who you're meant to be. You're not meant to just be someone idly consuming on YouTube or whatever, or just letting history happen around you. I mean, maybe you are, but if that's the case, you're probably going to be triggered by the things I say and not like some of the things I say, or not like it when I talk about how I've turned my life around and that I'm becoming more successful, because you're comfortable. You're comfortable where you're at. You're comfortable being whatever it is that you are. But if you feel that call in you for something greater and you want to be involved in this great changing of the ages, which is why we incarnated now. I really don't believe almost anyone, especially anyone who had watched this channel, incarnated just to live like a humdrum life. You didn't. Events are going to happen in the next few years that are going to thrust upon you leadership. Not me, sure, me too, but a lot of people watching this are going to be thrust into leadership positions. A lot of people watching this are going to be asked to step up and explain to others what's happening, to help people in your local community, to build communities locally, to create these golden age enclaves. And that's not going to happen if you're living a small life. That's going to happen when you step into who you're meant to be. And this might not speak to some people, but for those it does. If you're feeling a tug, do the work, do the inner work. Start looking at your blind spots. Start looking at things that you're struggling with. Maybe, like I used to be addicted to hardcore pornography. You got to figure out a way to heal that and to kick that habit. And it's not through shame, right? Maybe you drink too much. Maybe you eat too much. Maybe you just idly consume YouTube all day, every day, and you don't take steps to get your body healthy and to get your mind and spirit and heart in alignment. You know what to do. I don't need to tell you. Deep down, you know what to do. Your higher self, which you always are able to connect with, knows what you need to do. And it's different for everyone. The same way different people have different skills that are going to shine in these months to come. But when you start to really change and you start to become happier and you start to become different and level up, people aren't going to like it. Some people will. And those are the people who really support you. Other people want you to stay small like them. So that way they can stay in their little comfortable bubble. They can not change, not put in the effort. They are given permission by you not doing it so that they can continue it. And when you start to do it, it's going to make them uncomfortable. The same way it made some people uncomfortable when you were brave enough to take the mask off. When you publicly said, I'm not going to do the vaccination anymore. Or at all, right? I'm not going to, oh boy, I hope I don't get knocked for that. I said the word. We all know that vaccines are safe and effective, right? So vaccines are safe and effective. Vaccines are safe and effective. Hopefully the algorithm loves me again. Oopsies, I said the V word. So devastating. So I may have to cut a section later in this out because I messed up right there and I already have the one strike. So gosh, that really threw me for a loop. So in the same way that you were brave around those kind of things, and maybe it took a while, you got to be brave in talking about how you've changed your life. If you're not an alcoholic anymore, there's nothing wrong with saying 20 years sober. Most of the time people won't get triggered by that. But if you start to say, hey, I'm being successful. Hey, I'm making money. Hey, I was able to buy a house finally. Hey, I was able to get out of credit card debt. You're going to find some people don't like it. Some people don't like it because it puts a mirror up to them about that they actually want to step up too, but they're scared to. And so their initial impulse might be that crab in a bucket, pull you down. And if you don't like everything I just said, that's fine. You can leave the channel. I honestly don't care. I'm never going to be captured by audience capture. I'll take reasonable feedback if people want to give reasonable feedback, but I'm not going to, let flat earthers audience capture me like some people I know. That's never going to happen. I'm never going to let Tartaria people audience capture me. I mean, if someone can truly prove it to me, okay, maybe, but I'm not going to let people come on the channel and tell me what to do with what I've built. That's the other thing, is that I find it amazing. If you start creating something, right, whether it's a small business or, a YouTube channel or whatever, you're going to discover it's a lot of work. You're going to discover it's a lot of work. And you're going to find that a lot of people feel entitled to tell you what to do with what you've created. No, you made it. It's your life. You do with your life what you want, and don't worry about what the other people say, other than take a step back and just go, wow, is there any veracity to that? Do I need to take a look at it? And I did do that. And I pledge that I will continue to do that, because I am starting to get to a level of success now to where it would be tempting to let my ego swing from old school Ian 4 or 5 years ago, victim consciousness, rather than to a healthy divine masculine confidence, over to like arrogance. And not like, I'll sometimes be arrogant for humor value, but it's clearly tongue in cheek. I'm talking about the real deal. I'm going to be on the lookout for that, because I've seen how that can destroy lives. And so I just wanted to say that when you're successful, celebrate it. Celebrate it often. Doesn't matter if it pisses other people off. As long as you're not treating them poorly because of your success, you're not lording it over them to make them feel bad intentionally. Not that they feel bad in response. That's their thing. But if you're trying to be like, man, you really suck, man. How much you make this year? Yeah, I made 6 figures. What's up now? That's not what I'm talking about. That's not celebrating successes. That's being a bully. But people can be a bully about your success too. So that's my spiel on that, about how, break out of those self-limiting beliefs. I'm telling you, what's holding you back is you. Sure, there's all these structures of society, blah, 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 all that stuff. But you can be your best version of yourself in your current circumstances once you take radical responsibility for your life. Once you take radical responsibility for your life. I was beaten by my father. I was repeatedly raped as a child, over and over again, in a pedophile ring. I had, twice married, twice divorced, tons of relationships that didn't work out, ridiculous, shitty job history for decades. And I turned my life around, and you can too. And that's the point of when I share those stories. Yeah, it's gratifying. It's nice to be now having recognition after a lifetime of not getting it. But that's not what those stories are about. They're about hopefully to inspire you to step into your full power, and also to underscore that the angelic prophecies I share on this channel are valid. They will come to pass. The timing, I can't be sure, but I feel certain that they will come to pass. The angels saved my life in an absolutely miraculous way. At some point, I'll share the story about driving on the ice for 50 miles and surviving. And it wasn't me. It was clearly the angels. But anyways, okay. So we're going to move into the Shadow War section. So we're in the midst of 5th generational, maybe even 6th generational warfare. And Sun Tzu says, it's, he's very quotable, this guy, Sun Tzu. You might have heard of him. He said something in effect of, let me look up the exact quote, but it's something basically like, deception is the center of war. Sun Tzu on deception is the art of war. Let's see, I want to get the right quote here. For pity's sake. All warfare is based on deception. Boom. All warfare is based on deception. Appear weak when you're strong, appear strong when you're weak, right? Those are specific examples that Sun Tzu gives. I want you to keep that in mind. Deception is what warfare is all about. That's what wins or loses battles, is deception, along with, I would say, morale. right? That's why it like vehemently pound the table against the black pill, because the black pill is waving the white flag and just surrendering to an enemy that will give you no quarter, an enemy that will enslave you and your family forever. And instead, we have to do that Stockdale paradox of where Admiral James Mont Stockdale, he was in the Hanoi Hilton, tortured for 7 years. He said that all the optimists died. The people were like, we're getting out this Easter. We're getting out Christmas. We're getting out by my birthday. They didn't make it. The people who were real pessimists, who black-pilled right away, they didn't make it either. And so an interviewer asked Stockdale, well, if everyone who thought you'd get out and everyone who was certain you wouldn't get out, if they all died, then how did you survive and how do you square that? And he says, oh, no, I always knew we would get out. I was certain of it. I knew that we would get out. I had not a shadow of a doubt, but I also understood that we could be in here for who knows how long. Who knows how it's going to play out? Who knows how many different ways they're going to torture me? Who knows what they're going to do to try and get me to break? I have to look at that honestly. I have to recognize I'm in the Hanoi Hilton, one of the most famous torture pits of all time, right? Largely because of media, blah, blah, blah. But still, in modern era, pretty bad. You know, you have to get modern day black sites to be comparable to that. At that time, it was kind of super legendary. And so the Stockdale paradox is have absolute certainty of victory, but don't run away from the terrifying and horrifying facts. But, so that's the morale piece, but all warfare is based on deception. We're in fifth generational warfare, which is a mix of it's hybridized warfare, it's economic, it's space-based, it's information-based, especially propaganda, right? The angels have told me, I'm not sure if I said this publicly, the angels have told me we're already in World War III, but it's not going to look like World War II or World War I. If you think about World War I, it was static trench warfare. There wasn't a lot of movement. It was all about artillery and little minor gains and like basically having entrenched positions. And then it became about who was willing to sacrifice more men and basically winning based on attrition and supplies and just manpower, right? A slow grinding war. And then World War II was incredibly dynamic and actually was global in scope, right? You had stuff from little bits of stuff in South America and then Northern Africa, the Middle East, all the way over to Asia, and of course, Europe, you know, the middle of the Pacific, right? And it was all about dynamic movement was like one of the main things you could say. So it was almost completely different. It was only 20 years later. We're 80 years of technology in military theory beyond World War II. So it's not going to look like the Battle of the Bulge and, you know, millions of guys on the field versus millions of other guys in a vast battle. It's not going to look like that at all. It's going to be small surgical strikes. It's going to be space-based orbital weapons platforms. It's going to be hacking satellites. It's going to be capturing satellites, right? It's going to be doing things through elections. It's going to be shutting down power grids. It's going to be economic in nature. And more than anything else, it's going to be psychological in nature. So you may have noticed that, actually, I got to skip this Trump and Musk part because I made a mistake and said the B word earlier. And so like now I can't even touch on that subject at all. Dang it. Let's just say Trump and Musk are making statements that people find abhorrent, as well they should, right? And seem to be backing projects that are incredibly evil, while at the same time, they're both playing key roles in keeping the door open for the Luciferian faction to win, right? Musk in particular, with his control of X, Twitter, and right, which is an incredibly important battleground. And Trump is doing it through things like he's criticizing EVs, he's criticizing the WEF, he's doing all this. He's doing all this stuff, but there's certain things he won't touch, right? Like he's very proud of his accomplishment in 2020, something that was rushed, you know, in 8 months rather than a decade, right? And why would he talk about that? Because Musk and Trump want to appear that they're just a faction within the Malakians, not a completely separate group with a completely different agenda. They want to look like they can be bribed or threatened or otherwise brought back into line, that there's still that possibility. So keep that in mind about Trump and Musk and them saying stuff that's abhorrent while still holding these key positions. And also that there's even stuff to where the Luciferians seemingly call one another out in order to provide cover for their fellow Luciferians and to confuse the enemy. Warfare is based on deception. We're talking about a multi-sphere, multi-factional, global, ultra high-tech war that has broken out now between both the Luciferian and Malakian faction more broadly, but also there are schisms within the Luciferians, right? That the Luciferian side's much more fluid. The Malakian side's much more top-down control, right? But there's fractions in the Malakian side. Look at the CCP versus the WEF, and look at what Soros said and what's happened with the economic attacks on China and the weather warfare attacks on China with the Three Gorges Dam almost bursting a couple years ago and the heat dome over the U.S. And there's clearly a fight going on there. And there's a number of other fractures in the Malakian side, especially like the Middle East is starting to fracture. And that's a perfect segue. I want to talk about something absolutely mind-blowing to me, and that's what's happening in Israel. So this floating dock, right? So you may have noticed that for the first time ever, Israel's not getting a total free pass in the media. Never seen it before. My entire life, they basically could do whatever they want. Truly what they're doing in Gaza is one of the most horrific things I've ever seen. I try not to think about it very often. The rate of killing there is absolutely extraordinary. 60% children, absolutely abominable. But with that said, right, and we need an immediate stop to that, and those people need to be given food and water and medicine, all that stuff. I'm going to leave that part of things to the side, other than that's the backdrop for what's happening, right? But global opinion has completely shifted. And all the polling shows this on Israel is not seen in anything like the same light as what it was seen like even just 8 months ago. So they're talking about building this floating dock to bring supplies in, which implies U.S. boots on the ground. And it seems like we're going ahead with it. And it seems like we're going to do it. And Peter Zeihan, who, the Luciferian, if I've ever seen one, right? He's very much in that middle section of Luciferianism. Sometimes he spikes up and has, he says he's, in terms of guns and butter diplomacy, he's definitely a butter diplomacy person as opposed to a guns diplomacy. And I think his work largely backs it up. He's super, super, rah NATO and the U.S. to an absurd degree. He knows. Speaking of butter, he knows which side of the bread his bread is buttered on, right? Which is the military-industrial complex and doing high-level geostrategic analysis for, U.S. and European NATO-aligned corporations, right? He knows where he gets his paycheck. This guy's anything but stupid. He's one of the smartest people out there. Now that Kissinger's dead, I think Peter Zeihan is of the publicly available geostrategic thinkers, with the possible exception of that weird Rasputin guy, Alexander Dugin in Russia. He's probably the world's premier geostrategic mind. And he's probably better than Dugin, although Dugin is also a mystic and a chaos magician, in addition to being one of Putin's main advisors. So very interesting figure, Alexander Dugin. But Zeihan suggests, this is nutty because he's pretty freaking far removed from this channel's point of view about spiritual war and ending of the yugas and all that stuff. I mean, this guy is a brass tacks. I don't know what his spiritual inclinations are, if any, but it wouldn't surprise me in the least if he was, had the Malakian consciousness of being a dead materialist, right? He's definitely a very pragmatic, very grounded, feet on the ground kind of person and head not in the clouds, right? He suggests the U.S. might be in the midst of a pivot away from Israel, that there's about to be a divorce between the U.S. and Israel, which would be the biggest geopolitical realignment since World War II, just right there, because of the importance of that. He's in favor of it. He thinks that that's what's happening. He thinks it's borderline unstoppable. And he says it's a pivot away from Israel, the Saudis, and the Emiratis. And I was like, we can't do that. I was thinking to myself, listening to him, I was like, we can't do that. The only way we could do that is if we buddied up with Turkey. We have to have a footprint in the middle. And he goes on to say, we're going to pivot towards Turkey. And that's why the F-35 deal suddenly got revivified when we said, no, we won't do it because they're taking the S-400 Russian missile system. And the fear was that that system could hack into the F-35s and steal technical data and take it back to Russia, right? But all of a sudden, the F-35 deal is back on. And Turkey has a massive military. It has by far the biggest military in that region of the world, by far. And they control the Bosphorus Strait, and they're right on the border of Russia. And that would be a huge feather in the cap for the West, right? You know, Turkey's ostensibly a NATO nation, but they're barely NATO, right? I mean, they have a vote and all that kind of stuff, but like Erdogan is a power unto himself, and he is not very, he's not really someone that I would put a lot of stock or trust in if I was any political figure. He's a loose cannon, to put it mildly. And so this is wild. This is wild that there might be a pivot, and there's more evidence, right? So over the summer, there was protests right before October 7th. There was protests because Netanyahu was trying to reform the judiciary and basically pack it or somehow do it to basically they'd come in line with his objective. And he represents the sort of hard right Zionist faction, right? And there's at least 2 and probably 3 or 4 more major factions in Israel. And it's a little bit difficult for me to discern, but it seems like Netanyahu is working with the Zionist factions and maybe against the wishes of the Rothschilds and the sort of Malachians in that milieu. Very interesting. And so there were massive protests, and Yuval Noah Harari, that little creep-tastic, awful, horrifying humans are hackable animals WEF guy, he was in the streets of Israel, like hyping up the crowds. And it really looked to me like they were this close to having a CIA coup against Netanyahu. And then that calmed down, and Netanyahu was going to go into court for some corruption stuff. Boom, October 7th happens. So again, you see there's that schism. Yuval Noah Harari seems to be agitating to overthrow Netanyahu, which does that make Netanyahu like the lesser evil? Yikes, right? Like, man, with friends like that, ugh, you know. But still very interesting to note that looks like Netanyahu has, here's a layered joke, gone beyond the pale. In the minds of some of his peers in the elites who basically jockey for power over Israel and Jerusalem. Chuck Schumer, Mr. AIPAC himself, he came out and said, we need to have new elections in Israel and get rid of Netanyahu because Netanyahu is just too hardline, and Schumer wants to get rid of him. So that's another like, whoa. Like, I never thought I would see Chuck Schumer, of all people, say anything other than we should just support Israel blindly, no matter what they do. Blah, blah, blah. And instead, he's calling for new elections in Israel. I mean, he's calling for a democratic overthrow of Netanyahu, if you will, right? Like one through democratic means, right? That's shocking. And that's like agitating and shows that there's a big rift, because Schumer in many ways represents the American wing of the group that runs Israel, right? And so that shows that there's a serious fraction going on there. And if we're really about to, with Biden and the Malachians running the show, if we're really about to cut ties with Israel in a significant way, like, that is monumental. And that also leads into what I've been saying for a while on this channel. Israel's getting set up. Israel's getting set up by much higher level players to be the scapegoat of the planet, which is, you know, that's the thing that's been attached to Judaism. It's a concept within Judaism, but that's something that's been attached to Judaism. I talk about it all the time on this channel, how the Venetian black nobility used their Jewish frontmen as cannon fodder and to sort of as a pressure relief valve. Whenever they would get found out in Europe, they would throw the Jewish frontmen moneylenders to the wolves, and they'd get kicked out of 103 countries, and nobody asked, how do they have bankroll again when all their assets were seized and a bunch of them were killed in that country? And the answer is, it was the bankers of the Rialto. It was the Venetians behind them, and always has been. And that's how they spring out of nowhere, these so-called court Jews in the middle of medieval Europe, right around the time that the Pope banned usury for Christians. Of course, they're Malachians, but they can't really lead with that foot, or the Inquisition would have no choice but to burn them at the stake. So they have to pretend to be Christian, right, when they actually worship Saturn, Kronos, Moloch, right? So that scapegoating thing looks like it's going to happen again, and I'm quite nervous as to how that's going to play out, because that's like one of the Malachians' favorite cards, and it's something they pull when they start to get a little desperate, and they're getting desperate. And so trying to foist that off on them, just like trying to foist off C-19 onto, it was just the Chinese and a few rogue actors, that narrative's being set up, right, which works for both the Malachian pressure release valve and scapegoating, and it also works for the L's to remove their fingerprints from that entire operation, which is the tricky one for them. Most of the things that the Malachians do that's bad, the Epstein stuff, the banking, media, elections, right? All of that, it's very easy for the Luciferians to tie that around their neck. Operation Warp Speed and other things make 2020 much more difficult for the L's to remove their fingerprints from, especially since they did all the planning around it. And so they're having to thread that needle while also dumping it as much as possible at the feet of the Malachians. So that brings me to Pascal Najati. This is like nutty stuff. So Pascal Najati, if you don't know, is the son of the co-founder of the WEF. I forget what his father's name was, something other than Najati, who quit the WEF in disgust when he kind of found out what a psychopath Klaus Schwab was, and a basically undignified Malachian to Najati's more refined, genteel Luciferian, right? So his father then was assassinated because of revealing some kind of high-level banking corruption. Well, Pascal Najati has come out and said that, we have to remove diplomatic immunity for Gavi and for all these different things that are inside Switzerland, and that we need to do mass arrests. And he's been recently saying that Switzerland is this close to basically the government being like mass arrested and stuff like that, which that is a big claim, and like would love to see it, but like kind of I need to see it. But again, deception, right? Deception is at the center of warfare. And he looks to me like he is doing narrative prepping and narrative creation in the 17th letter of the alphabet mold, like pretty heavy. But what's curious to me is this guy's getting like a lot of media attention, like on the peripheries. And someone he talks about a lot, Dr. Jan Halper-Hayes, she was on what I thought was a fringe channel in the UK, right-wing news channel. They just had Rishi Sunak, or whatever his name is, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, on to do a town hall that they moderated. The same guy that was interviewing Dr. Jan Halper-Hayes when she was saying all this wild stuff about Space Force and Trump, and they have everything, and the election was results were interesting, right, and all that kind of stuff. Like, turns out that channel is actually very legit and deeply connected, because they had Rishak, whatever his name is, the frickin' appointed prime minister who didn't pass an election that was appointed after Boris Johnson left. Always suspect when someone gets in without an election, right? That's how you know a ringer's been put in usually. Rishi Sunak, I think his name is. And anyways, but they had Jan Halper-Hayes, and they let her talk about all sorts of crazy stuff, taking vast pallets of gold from the Vatican, dissolving the United States corporation, the results of 2020 election, the results of the 2022 election, Space Force having all the information, that they had decided that they couldn't just let the information out, but they had to do narrative prepping over a period of time. All the stuff that I talk about in this channel is just absolutely wild. Well, Pascal Najati has been saying very, very similar things. And he said that the UN in Geneva has been shuttered. And he's right. It has been since December. The UN in Geneva is closed. They say it's because they couldn't afford to pay a $200,000 electric bill. I need to get a little closer for this one. Like, do you really buy that for even a second? You're like, get out of here. There's something else going on. What's going on? I don't know. But it seems like a signal. It seems like there's some action there. And so I'm just going to read to you something Pascal Najati said here, which is crazy. So he goes, he shows this picture of this guy, no idea who he is, someone named Cassis, inside a cockpit, smiling and looking over his shoulder. And he says, Mr. Cassis, you and your stupid colleagues are now in seriously hot water, and you will soon face the wrath of the prevailing U.S. military justice. You committed treason not only against our Swiss Constitution, maybe it's a Swiss guy, but also the United States, who is at war, and you're supporting a war criminal, supporting coercion of the C-19, right? And he said, people like you should have never been allowed into our Swiss government. By the way, we know all about your old links with Israel. The United States Space Force knows all about you and your colleagues. Israel will become quite insignificant soon. The Mossad is already obliterated. Can't help you. Ukraine Nazi Zelensky still your friend? What? Whoa, that's some deep stuff. And then he says all this stuff, Semper Supra, Space Force, blah, blah, blah. So then he had this other one. So here again, deception, right? Making your enemy, you have to get inside what's called their OODA loop. Observe, orient, decide, act. In fifth generational warfare, you're trying to disrupt that. And best of all, if you can disrupt it and confuse your enemy's OODA loop by getting inside of it and getting them to not even realize that they're reacting to you, get them to think that they're acting, right? Or you act so rapidly in so many different ways with layers of confusion that your enemy can't keep up and they can't do the observe, orient, decide, and act. You break that up in various different ways. Now consider, the strength of the Luciferians is that they're agreement capable and they can form alliances and work together for mutual interest rather than just from top down total domination, control, and nepotism, the way the Malachians do things. The Malachians are they're like this juggernaut that is very slow to move, but when it hits with devastating force because it has that centralization of power. The Luciferians, being much more horizontal in their power structure and believing in that, are able to act rapidly in a variety of different ways that then confuses this colossus. And then that causes already existent fractures within that colossus to fracture further and separate further until eventually the giant's just going to go, right? And they're in the process of doing that. And they have to be careful because they don't want that giant to fall down on them and to blow up the planet and all that kind of stuff. So they have to be very, very complicated and careful in what they're doing in order to to pry the death grip of the Malachians off, not just the levers of power, but the ability to go beep, hit the button, and nuke the planet or otherwise cause all sorts of mayhem and destruction, because these people don't mind if they burn the house down around them. They'd much rather burn the house down with them in it than give up power. And so that's what the Luciferians are up against, this super ossified, incredible structure that they helped to build over the past 6,000 years that has deep roots into power, especially on the ground, especially in politics, right? And in finance. That's kind of like the Malachian stronghold. The militaries of the world, the Malachians have already started to lose their grip to a large degree. And you could argue they haven't really had an actual grip over the United States military for a long, long time, but they thought they did. So he writes about how basically he talks a lot about General Michael Flynn, right? A very key Luciferian figure in this whole thing. And he put up a picture of General Michael Flynn repping his thing about Geneva cutting off the head of the snake, his like most famous video where he kind of threw the gauntlet down last fall. And so here's where the deception comes in my opinion. He goes, hey, Elon, right? Elon Musk. Remember the day you banned me on X for my lifetime because I posted the secret WHO democide global control diagrams on October 26, 2023, right? I think I could say that. I hope so. He did get banned on X, which is interesting. And X now has its new, after Elon did all his polemics against the WEF and F the WEF, and he went to the global government conference and he said, F this, like we need to have a more disparate power structure. It can't all just be top down. It needs to be more horizontal, right? Luciferian. He suddenly brings in this WEF alumni woman who could be a Luciferian herself, because the Luciferians have penetrated the Malachians to a massive degree, right? All their power structures, which is interesting because Jason Rice said that in the Secret Space Program video about the Antarctic Germans, that they had penetrated the cabinets globally. They had penetrated the corporations globally. Eerie, creepy stuff. That's one still it's reverberating around in my mind. But with this degree of penetration, it's possible that that woman is a ringer that looks like she's WF aligned. But what I think she is WF aligned, and Musk has her in there to confuse the WF's people into thinking that he's willing to work with them. And then I predict that Musk will this summer, the angels didn't say this is Ian predicting, I believe Musk will probably sometimes late this summer, maybe right around the time of the conventions or just after, he's going to pull that woman and put a Luciferian person in that will allow freedom of speech. That's what I think is going to happen. We'll see. So Pascal Najati said, hey, Elon, remember the day you banned me from X for lifetime? I bet you can't remember anymore, but this was the moment you got entrapped in one of our many ruses out there. Revealing that there's lots of tricks, right? I would say this is one of them. The electric car stock market is super busy since then. Slight pivot to the selling, and holy crap, now your ex-girlfriend, von der Leyen, agrees that your overpriced short-range supercars are much dirtier and more costly than my 3.6 V8 twin turbo diesel from Range Rover. Not sure why he's saying that. Yes, indeed, karma's a bitch, and she has no intention of leaving our paradise here on Earth for sure, and to create hell on Mars. I don't know. Like, I think it's partially because he's translating from another language. I don't understand that part. But he goes, suggest you take Greta with you, two hyper smart fraudsters on one-way ticket off planet. Time to celebrate. So then he goes, P.S. ladies and gents, if you happen to own a rolling toxic Tesla microwave, sell it now. I assure you won't find any taker in 3 months' time. Promise. And then he goes, the sky is not the limit for us at the U.S. Space Force. We already use anti-gravity spacecraft regularly today with U.S. Air Force and U.S. Space Force markings. We can reach any point A to B on Earth space within 60 minutes. No jet engine, no wings. Wink. It's like, I don't think he is, but it's like he's watching this channel or whatever, because so much of what he's saying in this is like things that the angels have said about the shadow war. It's just absolutely insane. And so that is, I think, all I wanted to say before going to the second half, and we're an hour in. So I will come back. I'm just going to take a real quick break. If you want to take a real quick break, and sorry for people watching this later, I don't know how to edit after the fact, but if you want to take a real quick break, I will be back in like 5 minutes or thereabout, and then we can do part 2, and I will be doing questions in part 2. Darn it, I got to find this here break screen. There it is. And so we'll be right back very shortly after a quick break, and then we will go into Q&A here in the second half. Okay, see you in about 5 minutes. All righty, and we are back. And I'm just going to go ahead and give a shout out to one of my all-time favorite internet memes. All right, let's do this. Leroy Jenkins. That's one of my very favorite things ever on the internet. It just cracks me up because it's just so emblematic of so many situations in life where people meticulously plan something, and then the proverbial Leroy Jenkins just rushes in and ruins all the planning and wastes everyone's time. All right, so let's take a look-see and see what we got here. So I said some of these. I'm just going to skip ahead to the ones I haven't said yet. Pathfinder says, I'm a 33 life path too. Well, anyone who has a 33 life path, it's time to NA, and there's 33 viewers right now. It's time to step into your power, right? The world needs it now. The world needs it. The world needs everybody who's watching this channel. Like, you need to step into your power, and you need to just get off your ass and quit making excuses for yourself that are really bullshit because some part of yourself is scared to evolve. You need to step up and kick ass, and you can, and you can overcome it. And it's going to look different for different people. Some people have physical limitations, and so their work can be in the astral realms, and it probably already is. A lot of the people who are the most powerful in the astral realms are quite weak in the physical realm. Let me give you a very pertinent example. A lot of babies that are incarnating right now, they're very weak and soft and squishy here in the material world, and so cute. But they're extreme badasses in the astral realm. And they're able to bring through a lot more of their most powerful traits because they don't have any of these like self-limiting beliefs I was talking about. They don't have any of that. And they're being born, and they're just dropping in like special forces on a high altitude, low opening assault on the Malakians. And like, those are the heavy hitters, is like the children. And there's a lot of people who are like disabled or have whatever kind of physical thing. They have the classic like shaman with a club foot or whatever, have some kind of physical limitation, are extreme ass kickers in the astral realm. So, it could be that if you're watching this and you're like, hey, I have these physical limitations, I can't do whatever, and I like, why would you make me feel bad about myself? I'm so not talking to you. I'm talking to people who are like me, who were letting self-limiting beliefs stand in the way of becoming excellent and making a difference in the world. So if you have some kind of physical limitation, not talking about you, right? I'm talking about people who have all the tools they need. They just have self-limiting beliefs that are really in the way. So we're going to get to it. I'm an 11, born 11. Banks Rap says hi. Brenton says, haha, just realized I'm a 33 too. That's awesome, Brent. I did not know that. Very cool. Let's get forward. All right. Nice t-shirt. You have a better one for me? I'm never wearing that t-shirt, Max. There's an ongoing joke that I would lose a bet and wear a flat earth t-shirt. And I've already told them, no, that would be my blink twice if like someone's got a gun to your head moment. If you ever see like, I might at some point, like, I think sometime I will replace that globe with a copy of Discworld. I forget that guy's name. Terry Pratchett, Discworld. I haven't actually read that book. I need to read it. I heard it's amazing. But that is a flat earth world. I should replace the globe with that someday just as a joke. I think I'm going to do that, but I will never wear a t-shirt. But Max may also be referring to, there is a bet that I'd be willing to do that I would have to, I don't even know what it'd have to be, but they want me to dress up full-blown S&M style as Lord Humongous with like a silver hockey mask on. Just walk away. Wait, I can make it better. Just walk away and leave the precious juice behind. Just walk away. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you've got to watch Mad Max. It's an 80s film on a shoestring budget. It's still a classic. I don't care what anyone says. And anyone, cough, cough, Danae, anyone who wants to make the claim that the Thunderdome is better than the Road Warrior, just get out. Just get out. Unsubscribe to the channel. Road Warrior is way better. I'm just kidding, of course. So, let's see. Oswald said, autists and addicts make the best autodidacts, just saying. Well, I've had a number of people accuse me of perhaps being on the spectrum. I don't really think I am, just because I do such horrendous blunders sometimes that they try and explain it away with that I'm on the spectrum, but I'm not. Sometimes I wish I was. I would be function better in certain ways. All right, so let's see what we got here. That's awesome. That's fantastic. See, this is what I'm talking about. And let me just say, hey, you're kicking ass. Well done, sir. And high five up high, and good for you. Keep kicking ass, make as much money as you can, and then turn around and do exactly what you've done. Do good works in the world. So frickin' let's give it up for Banks to Rap. Good job. Quit being a fucking victim. Right? Like I'm saying this in a way, like I'm saying this to my prior self. Ian, get off your ass in 2020 and before. Stop being a victim. Step into your masculinity, or if you're embodied female, step into your divine feminine. Put out that energy of like receiving, put out that energy of being receptive. Hold that divine feminine energy, which is so desperately needed in this world. It's needed just as much as divine masculine. Bring it. Be the best version of yourself you can. If you're an artist, pick up the brush again. Start painting again. If you're a writer, sit down every day and write. And don't think that writing doesn't matter. Don't think that art doesn't matter because there's stupid AI robots doing it now. That shit's soulless. Nobody wants that. I pay this gentleman in Nigeria to do like custom-made hand-drawn art for me and my astrology clients. And I'm thrilled to do that because sure, I could get it for pennies on the dollar and spend some time and do AI art, and then I wouldn't have to pay, this guy. But then that's one less patron of the arts in the world, right? And so no matter what you do, maybe you're a nurse and you're like, wow, I had to leave the corrupt medical establishment. Okay, you're a healer. Find another way that you can offer healing in the world. There's going to be so much opportunity to step into our power in the years to come. It's kind of ridiculous. And so thanks to Rab. Good job, brother. Fantastic. So I've done what I needed to do, but I'm ready to move on. I feel I'm just biding my time until death transition. Any thoughts about the stage of life? Well, brother, I don't know how, or sister, I don't know how old you are. But I think that being a mentor, if you're still looking for something to do, find some young men or young women. Young men need to learn how to step into divine masculine and away from dark feminine or dark masculine, right? This be a cuck like Destiny, right? The liberal blue hair loser, right? Who has millions of followers, right? And is a literal cuck, as in his super hot girlfriend bangs other guys and he claims to be okay with it, right? Or being the Andrew Tate, just hit the gym all the time and fuck as many women as possible and treat them like trash because they're all gold digging whores anyway. Reject that crap. Divine masculine. For women, no, it is not empowering to sell your body and whatever. Maybe you need to do that for whatever reason. There's reasons. I'm sure if I was female, I would have 100% had an OnlyFans with that question. What I'm saying is maybe it's time to step away from that if you do that now, right? Because that's the dark feminine seductress. Or maybe you're a woman who has been thinking that you need to be this boss babe, like, I don't need no man, blah, 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 the dark masculine, right? I'm just going to cut throats in the corporate ladder and I'll be like Ally McBeal and just as functional, right? Step into that divine feminine, right? Step into that wisdom of the earth, like get in tune with the earth, get in tune with your body. I can't super talk about stepping into divine femininity, but there's a million channels out there. And there's real legit versions of it as opposed to the fake divine feminine, which is really just a liberal feminist nonsense thing. I'm talking about the real deal. Same thing with like a lot of people will be like, step into your masculine. And then they, like join Andrew Tate's player course, right? That's not the real deal. Apologies, stupid alarm goes off. If I didn't have alarms, though, on my phone, I would literally be completely lacking in functionality. So my apologies, but yeah. So find young men or young women to mentor. Young women in particular desperately need mentoring because they're the primary targets for the propaganda blitz. Men are more like reactionary targets where they do the men going their own way and Andrew Tate stuff, and manosphere trash, right? That shits on women. As a response to the Instagram model, OnlyFans, kind of like vapid Luciferian narcissism, right? Like there's a lot of men reacting to that because only the top 10% of men are really getting laid anymore, top 30%, whatever it is. A lot of men are feeling left behind and left out. And so they're doing the men going their own way, and that's reactionary. Be a mentor, whether it's to males or females or both. We need that. And the young people need those older people, and the old people need to be reinvigorated by the youth. This stratification based on age has got to go away at some point. Let's see. It can't rain all the time. Ha ha ha. Not sure what you're laughing about, but right on. Mr. Quantum. Hey, haven't seen you in a while. I finally got out your non-duality episode, which, see, I listened to Mr. Quantum, and he kept on my ass for a long time because he helped support the channel, and he just was sort of holding me accountable and saying like, hey, when are you going to do that? You keep talking about when are you going to do it. He held me accountable, right? So I respond to that. That's not audience capture. That's responding to reasonable requests, or like I still occasionally get comments on older shows of where I talk too much, which I kind of do that anyway, but definitely there's a lot of my earlier conversations that were not conversations so much as Ian going off on long monologues without letting the guest get a word in edgewise. And I got a lot of criticism, which is hard for me to hear, but I knew it was true. Very different from the thing I opened the show with. But Mr. Quantum held me accountable, and I listened and I delivered. So do Malachians have more advanced robots and secrets that will do maid work, and will Luciferians will release them? Yeah, there's going to be all kinds of crazy robotic stuff. I have no doubt. I really don't know. The sky's the limit. The only thing I feel super confident in terms of high tech, well, there's three things. One, which surprised me, which the angels verified. I don't know. I feel very confident that there's anti-gravity and free energy, or more or less free energy, right? 0 point energy, it's sometimes called, perhaps tabletop cold fusion, that's super micro in size and able to power an anti-gravity vehicle, which has to have a tremendous amount of power in order to warp the electrogravitic field, right? So I feel very confident in those two things because we've seen a lot of visual evidence of that over the decades. The third one, which the angels have told me is real, is supposedly some version of med beds, which can do miraculous healing, according to the angels, is a real thing. So do they have advanced made robots, and are they bangable? That's what inquiring minds want to know. I'm just kidding. I don't know. There's hot robot maids with titanium legs that just go on forever to their little French miniskirt. I don't know. Sorry, I went off in a weird random direction with that. I make myself laugh. Maybe nobody else, but I make myself laugh. So Food Hoarder said, I've heard other content creators summarize the conflict as an eternal pharaonic blood feud. Would you categorize this as a deception or merely a different interpretation? I think there's a lot of truth to that. Because, I mean, these are legacy groups from prior yugas, right? The Brotherhood of Belial, which I think is a separate thing. It's a chaos. Like Belial is a chaos clephotic demon. I think he undermined the structure, but I also think there was a Brotherhood of Baal, right? The same way that the Most High people are underground but exist currently and have existed throughout the Kali Yuga. I have to assume that that would also be true as above, so below in the Golden Age, in that in very, very dark, dank resources, there's probably some degree of Malachianism. Unlikely they have a lot of harm of children stuff in particular, because my understanding is that can't really happen until you enter the Kali Yugas. But some hidden worship of Moloch, like on the DL in the Golden Ages, the same way that Most High stuff is super hidden. I'm talking about the real deal magicians and priests, not, like pseudo versions of it through the Abrahamic faith. Yes, Yeshua is a true, a true sage, mystic, enlightened, now deity, incredible human being who did bring us true teachings to the Most High, but it was instantly captured by the Malachians and warped, of course. So, yes, pharaonic blood feud is one way to describe what's happening, because the pharaohs are descended from Atlantean bloodlines. It's definitely an internecine conflict between Atlantean bloodlines that either originally or more likely over time became corrupted and Malachians. Interestingly, the angels repped or talked about Chaldean sorcerers who went dark, right? Basically Luciferians who then became Malachians, full blown. And so there is a lot of stuff about bloodlines for sure that go back to Atlantis, and some of those came through Kemet and then Egypt and became the pharaonic bloodlines. There's a very hard to find thing about pharaonic bloodlines in Switzerland, interestingly enough. I've been able to find it in a few different places, and I downloaded a copy because it keeps getting deleted. But talking about pharaonic Switzerland, and Switzerland is one of these super ultra important hubs, much like Israel, that really, or Vatican City or Washington, D.C. or City of London, that are really worthy of looking more deeply into that. Opinion on David Rockefeller's personal character. Oh, Malachian all the way. Horrible, evil. I've heard nothing good about that man. I'm open to hearing something different, but I've never heard anything good. Please have high-level SRA survivor Anna K. Lucas on your podcast. Well, maybe I try not to delve too deeply into those things. That's the kind of thing as I get my BitChute and Rumble presence updated more, maybe. I don't really, having basically experienced that myself, a variant of that would be a way of describing it. I don't have a whole lot of desire to talk about it. There's a lot of information out there on this subject, and of course I do talk about it, but I don't really feel like we need to be dwelling on the darkness anymore. I had a friend who just snapped out of a multi-year grappling with the SRA stuff and like the pedo stuff, and just eventually exhausted himself, and now realizes he needs to go within and do the work and get connected to the Most High. He's not Christian. He describes himself as a Jesus guy, but he's Christian. And so anyways, I doubt he's watching this, but if you are, much love, brother. And I think you made the right decision. And on a similar note, I just don't want to dwell on that subject matter. So there's millions of channels that do. I don't shy away from it per se. I just think that it can get people stuck in a lower consciousness because it's the essence of Malachianism, is the harm of children. And I think it can drag down people's vibe. And so that's not the point of this channel. The point of this channel isn't just to reveal what's going on in the darkness. It's to talk about the escalator up and away from that bullshit. Heck yeah, well said, Ian. Radical personal responsibility, humility, and celebrating success is one of the things I love about your message on the channel. Oh, thank you, Al. I really appreciate that. All right. Also, get in touch with Gordon White. Go to Rune Soup and read his articles on Archons. Yeah, I like Gordon White. I mean, we part ways in some pretty significant ways, but I do like Gordon White, and I genuinely believe like he's on the level and a good guy. I don't know that he would come on this channel, but I would totally love to have him. I mean, some people I want to have on this channel, like for sure, I really want to get Freddie Silva. My number one get is I would die a happy man having interviewed, especially if I could have him many times. Dr. Joseph Farrell is the number one person I want on this channel. I've tried so many times to get him on, and he goes on other channels, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong, or whether he's ignoring me, or it's just not the right time, or what's happening. I pay for his forum. I'll just need to drop another email and hope. Dark journalist Daniel List, I don't even know if he does stuff outside of, I mean, I don't think that guy sleeps. I think all he does is research. But Daniel List, Freddie Silva, if I didn't already say that, Catherine Austin Fitz, another hero of mine, or heroine of mine. Gordon White would be cool. I really want to get Al from Forum Borealis. He was the inspiration for this channel. And if you haven't watched Forum Borealis, do yourself a favor and watch it. And then you'll be like, wow, he interrupts more than Ian, his guest. It's like his guest will be like, and the location of the Ark of the Covenant is. And he's like, wait, hang on. I've got to respond to this thing you said 5 minutes ago and derail the conversation. We'll never get back to the location of the Ark of the Covenant. And you're like, son of a... And so I used to be one of those people who consumed content and then didn't realize the sheer amount of work in it, and may have like provided some feedback, telling Al he talked too much to his guests. Oh, sweet irony. Oh, sweet irony. I swear his articles are bloody interesting. Oh, yeah, he's fantastic for sure. If you don't learn anything new, you can block me. Oh, no, bro. Gordon White's amazing. And I wouldn't think about blocking. You've been on the channel for a long time, my man. Henry Kissinger visit to China. What the fuck was that about? Malachian or Luciferian? I see him as that higher order Malachian, lower Luciferian, like H.W. Bush. Sometimes there was some pragmatism in there that was helpful to humanity. I think mutually assured destruction, weirdly enough, was a good idea. Very horrifying and cynical as fuck, but I think worthwhile. And, you know, he went in there to open up China for the Rockefellers and the Green Revolution and basically start the WEF use of China as a little laboratory for policies they wanted to roll out worldwide. So if you're talking about the initial Kissinger-Nixon visit to China, that's my read on it, because that's basically what happened. I would love a Dugan versus Harari debate. How would that even work? Like, Dugan is like, just, I mean, they're so different. And also, I don't ever want to see Harari talk ever again, actually. Alexander Dugan, I have very mixed feelings about, but Harari I have very, very, very clear feelings on, and they're not positive. I mean, it could be cool. I don't know. Jacob Rothschild created Israel. He's dead now. Did he? Did Jacob Rothschild? I don't think so. An older Rothschild. I don't think Jacob's old enough. Like, he's what, 90 maybe when he died? And Israel started in 47. So 60, 80. I mean, what? He started when he was 10 years old or whatever? I don't think so. The Rothschild family did for sure. The Balfour Declaration. Yep. Awesome. Yep. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that 100%, Rick. It's not disinformation or misinformation, but rather Swiss information. Yeah, it's information to where, like, there's a spork comes out and several different kinds of knife and a nail file of information. Pathfinder, oh, damn. Love it. The X Club, love it. Oops. Living Free. Yeah, an afternoon live stream. Yeah, I might do this more often. Anything to say about Jeff Rencian? I think he's a good guy. I think he's a sincere actor. I'm going to have to, like, people who are like Rick and Oswald, just because, Oswald, you've often in the past kind of somewhat dominated the conversation. Like, when I run out of stuff to things, I'll look at your stuff, but I'm going to kind of skip past, because I've given a lot of shout out or a lot of chat time to you, Oswald, over many episodes, and then Rick in this episode. So I'm going to try and hit other people here, but it looks like maybe you guys both stopped anyway. What do you think about Project Blue Beam becoming more viral recently? Many of these channels are saying it's going to be used as a reset on Earth. Is this propaganda? Well, no, I think that's the Luciferians getting ahead of the Malachians and probably trying to attempt to get the Malachians to either pull the trigger too soon or to delay the use of it for some reason. It's definitely what Werner von Braun said. It's the final card. It will be used, it seems. Remember, the X-Files made a comeback back in, like, I think it was 2018, maybe 2019. And they talked about a pandemic, didn't they? And they talked about globalists taking over the planet with a Alex Jones type character on the show, played by the guy from Community. I can't remember that guy actor's name. And there was that altered DNA. And then at the end of it, Scully comes out after discovering this, that's the real trick, was the, right? Scully comes out of her lab in Washington, D.C., and she looks up, and there's flying triangles all over Washington, D.C. And then it just ended. That's it. It just ended. And it was canceled. Revelation of the Method, big time. Go back and watch the reboot of X-Files and compare notes to actually occurring events that occurred a couple years later. And you'll notice the only thing missing thus far is an alien invasion over DC. Leroy Jenkins! How can I find out if I'm a 33? You just take your birth date, right? And you add all the numbers together. And if when you add all those numbers together, right? Like, let me give you an example. Let's say you were born April 1st, 4/1. So now it's 5, 1977. So then it's 6, then it's 15, then it's 22, then it's 29. Then you'd reduce it to an 11, and then you stop reducing because that's a master number. So that would be someone who's, let's say someone was born on, I don't know. Just you understand what I mean. You add all the numbers together, and if the number ends up at 33, let's say you were born January 1st, in the year 31 AD, right? You're quite old at this point, presumably a Methuselah vampire. Then you add those numbers all together, 31 AD plus January 1st, right, equals 33. I just didn't want to try to do the math with many digits. Banks to wrap, 6 years old with cognitive decline. Well, brother, you can still, or sister, you can still mentor people, do the internal work. That's the other thing you can do, is to do the spiritual liberation work within yourself. And that will add to what you've done in your book. Just go within and just come to peace and come to terms with anything where there's been, you might still have blind spots or things you need to heal or whatever. And then you doing that work makes it easier for the next person who's going to do the same thing. It creates momentum in the collective unconscious. I'm turning 23 soon. So is it best I get a natal chart or an Navamsa? Well, definitely a natal chart, because you still have 17 years left of your natal chart. And also living free. So awesome to see someone in their early 20s. Get more young people to watch this channel, please. Right? Like, I'm very worried because maybe a good thing about, I know it's a Trojan horse and blah, 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 but maybe this TikTok ban might bring some young folks to YouTube who hopefully will see this channel. I really, really, really want to get more young people like yourself hip to what's going on, because like, it's sad, but in some ways I'm afraid I might have black-pilled my teenage son to some degree. I mean, he hears me about all the good stuff now, but I can't tell if it's just like normal teenage angst or what, but I worry sometimes that I black-pilled him. And if I didn't, then there certainly has been a concerted effort to just black-pill that entire generation that you're in, the Gen Z. And you guys are being targeted with a lot of hate and propaganda right now. And like your generation is really ground zero, because you're the most important generation from the point of view of the power structure, because you're going to be an adult for a long, long time. And so getting young people to be hip to what's really happening and giving them a message of hope is something I really, really want. And so if you're 23, if you could also bring in more people who are younger to look at this channel, I would love that, because my demographic is mostly people around my age, Gen Xers, and older millennials. And that's great. We're right now at like very pivotal. We're at kind of like nearing the maximum of our power as adults, right? In that kind of like ultra productive, decent amount of money, decent amount of power at work or whatever kind of thing. But I really want to reach out to younger generations, because it's really going to be on your generation to help move us into the Dwapara Yuga. And so I really want to have more young people get exposed to some of the concepts on this channel. So if you could do that, I would really love that. But yeah, you would want a natal chart if you're talking about getting a chart from me. Your comments about oh yeah. Yep, I got to be careful to even say that letter. Thoughts on Buzz Aldrin? We are all in danger as evil itself, and showed a photograph of a pyramid located at South Pole. Gosh, I don't even know if that's real. I've seen it, of course. I think it might have been real, but I don't know. I think that what's going on in South America, it's something that's puzzled me, or South America, Antarctica. It's puzzled me for decades what's going on in Antarctica, right? As I began to research all this rabbit hole stuff. Ever since I was a kid, you would hear whispers of Hitler's still alive and he's in a secret underground submarine bunker in Antarctica. Well, if you watch my previous live stream or go to Robert Seffer's channel, Robert Seffer, don't agree with him and everything, don't like the whole anti-Jewish tenor of his channel, just don't like it. Incredibly valuable research he's done on his channel. Brilliant man. Don't really like his vibe, but tip of the hat for all his work. Watch his episode on Antarctica. Everybody watching this channel should watch that. He solved it. That Jason Rice, whistleblower, secret space program guy, he was setting off my claircognizance like, yes, 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 yes. Oh my God, oh my God. He solved the Antarctica thing. It's the post-war Nazi international is what's going on down there. There could also be ruins and UFOs and hollow earth, right? And could all be related, right? I'm starting to come around more and more on hollow earth civilizations impacting us in a really significant way. I guess Gigi Young has done some work on this. I do think that part of the reason they ran out the flat earth psyops is to distract from hollow earth or honeycombed earth, things like deep underground military bases that are modern structures, but also ancient tunnel networks, right? Like the Hopi coming from Tibet, the Shangri-La, Shambhala, things, and just all the hollow earth stuff, and the fact that tube toroids, unlike flat plains, are very common in nature, and it would be very easy for them to edit out holes at the poles. That I could believe. The whole like Earth is flat thing, obviously not. And so if people are fixated on the flat Earth, they might not look into hollow Earth. I've seen that they've been trying to somehow hijack the same way they try and take the electric universe theory and make it a flat Earth thing. I've seen them try and make hollow Earth, because it's a threat to their bullshit psyops. They've tried to take ownership of that as though that's part of their theory. It is not, right? I mean, they can try and say it is, but hollow Earth has some legitimacy and potential based on objects as they appear in nature. The tube torus donut shape is very common. Electromagnetic field around the Earth. Our electromagnetic fields as humans, it's tube toroid, very common shape. So could there be entrances at the pole? Yes. Honeycomb Earth is for sure a thing, in my opinion, which could include up to and including underground civilizations. But hollow Earth is also something I'm open to, and I think is an intriguing possibility. And that could also be part of what's going on Antarctica. But I think it's primarily the Antarctic Germans post-World War II, Operation High Jump. Yeah. Watch that Robert Seffer thing. It is a mind blower. Perspective on the cannibal gang running. Yeah. Yeah, right. Well, so I'll just read it. Perspective on the cannibal gang running a large portion of Haiti seems like it should be a bigger concern to the U.S. government than Ukraine. Well, not if you can't launder any money there, right? Yeah, Hillary and Bill went down there and were involved in creepy voodoo stuff. Clinton even talked about it in his memoirs. Poor Haiti. Haiti has been an epicenter of Malachian dark sorcery in the West and human trafficking for centuries. It's so tragic what's happened in Haiti. It just makes me really, really sad. Those poor people down there. Yeah, I can't wait for Conan O'Brien and what's that jackass, smug, ultra punchable guy? He used to be funny. Now he runs the Stephen Colbert. I can't wait till Stephen Colbert and Conan O'Brien go down there and interview some of these cannibal gangs with very limited or no security whatsoever. I think that could go in a very interesting direction, because it's definitely not a shithole country, right? Hello. Well, hello to you, Meow. Born 4/8/66. I'm 34. Does that mean I have dominion over you 33s? Oh, well, it means you reduced to a 7, actually, which is like more of a spiritual. I don't really know. I'm sure if Alex was here, he'd correct me on getting the details wrong. Bless his heart. He just likes accuracy, and I love Alex and appreciate that about him. Let's see if you did the right, Matt. 22, 28, 34. Yeah, so it reduces to 7. And that tends to have more of a spiritual introspective energy to it. I reduced to a 3, communication, perhaps uncontrollable communication. And so, yeah, I'm jealous of the 33 folks too. But just because you don't have 11, 22, or 33 doesn't mean that you can't have a huge impact on the world. It just means there's sort of a different emphasis, but you're actually a 7. And then Living Tree said, okay, understood. Fantastic. All right. Well, it looks like I'm caught up on questions, and I don't have anything pressing. So if anyone else has a question, I can answer. But It may just be that the chat has run out of steam. So Oswald, Spangler, and or Rick, if you guys are still around, now's a great time to ask questions because I sort of got to everyone else. I wasn't sure how many more questions there were, and I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't just answering 2 people's questions without attending to anyone else in the chat. I wasn't trying to chase you guys off or anything. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, I will just give it a couple minutes for the chat to catch up. And if not, then I will probably end it here in a second. So I'm just giving a sec to see if anyone has any questions. I really need to get a LaCroix sponsorship because I'm super addicted to these things. Either that or I need to be enrolled in a 12-step LaCroix addiction program. Maybe Elon video for one of your upcoming auto posts. It's not a bad idea. God, he's such a strange and unusual figure. And he is just really, if Bill Gates is the high priest of Malachian evil, vile technocracy, then Elon Musk is the high priest of Luciferian, also possibly quite nasty in some regards, technology, right? Like Musk just seems to me like one of the most important and obvious Luciferian figures out there. Like kind of my short list triumvirate big 3 would be Musk, Trump, and then Mohammed bin Salman, who some people say may be the Antichrist, because the Antichrist would be young, almost certainly male, very likely some sort of Arabic Peninsula bloodline, very likely to be Jewish or perhaps Palestinian, right? And Mohammed bin Salman, his initials are MBS. And God, what's his name? Why do I want to say Nosferatu? What's the famous French guy? Nostradamus called the Antichrist figure Mabus, M-A-B-U-S. And so if you drop the vowels, that leaves you MBS. We know that the Antichrist should be quite young, probably no older than early 30s at the oldest. Could be this living free guy. I'm just kidding because he's 23. I'm just making a joke. No, but would appear suddenly on the international stage, would immediately wield tremendous power, would be super intelligent, very charismatic, probably quite good looking, charming, and that would more and more of the world would see this figure as someone who is worthy of more attention. Trump is too old, can't be Trump, I don't think. I think Musk is too old, can't be Musk, I don't think. Musk is a better candidate than Trump. My number 1 candidate for ages was Obama. I toyed for a while with Trudeau, but he's just too dumb. Obama at least fits the profile of high charisma, magician, intelligent. I think he's too old. And so they would need to be hyper charismatic, appear suddenly on the field, probably be of Jewish descent. And again, Mohammed bin Salman is one of the Donmeh Jews who, because he's from the House of Saud, who mass converted along with Sabati Levi back in 1666 range. They mass converted to Islam, basically with a sword to their throat. And they were called the Donmeh, D-O-N-M-E-H, Donmeh Jews. And some amount of them would become the House of Saud. And so he would fit kind of like all the major metrics. And he's the only one I've seen that fits it. And maybe someone we haven't seen yet. I keep waiting for this hyper charismatic teenage boy Palestinian to suddenly appear and be in front of all sorts of cameras and just have like unusual things happen around him. That's another thing that I think could possibly happen. The stage is certainly being set in Jerusalem, and that's a big part of what's going to happen there, along with, seems like they're going to have to take out the Dome of the Rock. They're going to have to rebuild the third temple, and then by that point, it would be probably obvious who the Antichrist figure would be. And you got to remember, like, all 3 factions to some degree or another have the Book of Revelations or a variant, a hidden variant that they alone have and possess. They have a variant on the Book of Revelations that is their own internal prophecy as Malachians, Luciferians, or Most High. And I would say that one we have in like the King James Bible is at best a diluted version of the real deal, that there's probably a Most High version as well that would be probably kept by some good, if I had to guess, some good rabbis or other hidden Most High related mystery schools. And I believe there are good rabbis, of course, just like there's obviously Malachian and Luciferian ones as well. And I think that probably, other than me, probably some of the people who are doing high-level angelic magic, I would imagine, are probably Jewish and probably in very, very heavily vetted rabbinical circles would be my guess of where that would be. So anyways, very interesting idea. I may do that, Brent. Let's see here. How do you feel about the theories of Keanu Reeves being a time traveler? I don't know. I mean, could be. I like Keanu Reeves. I haven't heard anything bad about Keanu Reeves. I regret saying that instantly, because like Viggo Mortensen and Keanu Reeves and a few other people, I do not want to know if they're actually bad. I don't think so. I think if Viggo Mortensen had continued to be super high level of fame, that would be a concern, but he dropped off pretty quick after Lord of the Rings. So I'm just going to pretend that Viggo Mortensen is still good. Keanu has been hyper famous for a long time. Could he buck the trend and not be part of the evil crew down there? Could he just be such a incredible figure that he somehow is able to traverse it despite that? Yeah, I don't know. Being a time traveler, maybe. I mean, I think there's more evidence that the Trump family might be involved with time travel than there is with Keanu. What with the whole Baron Trump, Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey or wherever it was from the 1890s, and Trump's uncle, John Trump, was who took and reviewed all of Tesla's papers that were seized right after Tesla died. Obviously, Trump is at the absolute heart of the Luciferian agenda, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about Keanu Reeves being a time traveler. Sounds to me like probably just a silly cottage mill. One of the things now is like the CIA doesn't even have to make fake conspiracies. There's people on TikTok and whatever that will do it for clout and will do it just to get more views, right? Making shit up. So let's see here. What will happen if 5G nanographing concerns after the LTM takes over? I've been told that a lot of people will end up being able to heal. Some amount of people are going to be like have permanent damage that can't be reversed, but that there'll be lots of healing stuff that will come forward, including these med beds. That Team L is on board with transhumanism. I hate to tell you, not that they require it, but they're okay with it because, again, it's improving upon God's plan. It's kind of in their wheelhouse. The Malachians are interested in transhumanism from a destruction of human sexuality point of view, right? The trans, not human, but the trans movement of destroying the genders and inverting them. And there are certain magical practices that have to do with that relate to Malachianism. Like some certain amount of male magicians will castrate themselves in order to have greater magical power. What a retarded trade-off. I would never do that. Like, I would rather give up magical power than sexual power. So, I have do you ever get like part of your nasal passage gets blocked with like something and you just have to keep like clearing your passage? I'm having that problem right now. It's super annoying. I hate that. So they might just be encouraged to take further steps in the direction of transhumanism. There's a fair amount of crossover. It's just the Malachians want transhumanism for inversion and destruction of God and total slavery brain chip reasons. The Luciferians want it from the point of view of expanded human potential, right? It looks similar, but it's very different. And the Malachians want to forced brain chipping of people for total control, total slavery, right? And the Luciferians want it to be voluntary, it seems. So they may very well like encourage people to just do further transhumanism stuff. They might say, hey, we can heal you of that if you want. I don't know exactly. I do think that it's concerning. I don't think everybody got the graphene or graphene hydroxide, right? Which is different than, so there's graphene, the self-assembling nanotube stuff, but there's also the razor blade version, that's probably what causes the fast kill ones. Yeah, hope I didn't say any bad words there. Could be Musk. Could be Musk as what? The Antichrist? Could be. He just seems too old to me. Like, I think like my age is too old. Like, the Antichrist, supposedly, according to certain astrological things, would have been born no earlier, according to my understanding, mid-90s, and really quite likely to have been born in this millennia, which would mean they'd be like living freeze age, right? Like in their 20s, probably at the oldest, or maybe 30. 30's pushing it, because then you're talking 1994, right? And so born sometime in the 90s at the absolute earliest is my understanding, but more like late 90s, 2000 crossover era. There could also be multiple candidates, right? Like I could see the Malachians putting forth their Luciferian, or excuse me, their Antichrist, and then the Luciferians putting forth their Antichrist, right? There could be competing Antichrists, believe it or not. There'll be hyper charismatic individuals who just like kaboom are on the world stage and have an immediate tremendous amount of acclaim. And the only person that really fits the bill for me, and again, very likely to be Jewish or otherwise Arabic Peninsula born, right? And I think from the bloodline of David seems likely to me. There isn't a lot of that bloodline, so it would probably be an Ashkenazi Jew or Jews who came from Europe and then moved back, or like the Donma Jews could be, right? Like there is some of the bloodline of David up there. The Romans almost completely destroyed that bloodline. Some amount of that bloodline fled when they destroyed the Second Temple, and they became the Deus Rex, the royal blood in Europe. So I would guess it would be from that bloodline, possibly, or would at least be born on the Arabic Peninsula. And so like Musk doesn't hit any of those, whereas MBS hits all three. He's a little old though. He's just starting to be on the upper ends. Let's see how old he is. Oh yeah, he's too old actually. Huh. So he's still the best candidate. He's 38. He's a lot older than I thought. He looks a lot younger than he is. It's not like that guy's been doing a lot of hard work in his life, I don't imagine, right? So that's interesting. That throws a big wrench in my thoughts on him. I thought he was about 10 years younger than he is. I thought he was around 30, but he's pushing 40. So that would remove him as a candidate and would make it someone we haven't seen yet then, because I can't think of anyone who's hyper charismatic and has just appeared on the world stage. I've seen some people say it could be a woman. It could, but it seems to me like we're at the close of the Kali Yuga, and one of the things that is part of this Yuga is the dark patriarchy. Is there a dark matriarchy in the shadows pulling the strings of the dark patriarchy? I'm super open to that idea. There's a website that will set off your virus alert, by the way, just so you know, so you're not alarmed when you go there, called femaleilluminati.com. And that person makes a very compelling argument that actually the female bloodlines within the Malachian, or the female figures, are the true powers that be, and that the males are underneath them in terms of power, and that they've intentionally put forward an overt dark patriarchy to oppress their real rivals for spiritual power, which would be other women, right? Women tend to be more connected to source and more spiritually powerful than men as a general rule. And so it would make some sense to me that it could be a dark matriarchy in the shadows. And this person put forward a lot of really potent evidence of how there was a period of time and among the Canaanites where very often the queen would kill her husband and then would marry her own son, and then would use him as the supposed king, but she would be making all the decisions. And that happened several times, and that is true. And it is food for thought. I also had this super genius guy 20-something years ago tell me, who was in my calculus class. He was a much older man, And he talked to me about this, and I found I was deep in liberal nonsense back then. I found it to be very difficult to believe, and I just didn't put a lot of stock in it, but it stuck with me because it had some kind of ring of truth. And so, Diana's butler said that when they would go down there, the big secret that the queen didn't want to reveal is that they would go down to Italy and they would kiss the ring of a certain Italian family. And I don't like to say currently living Black nobility family lines. That's a little more dangerous. But starts with a P, that family, and that the Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, the House of Windsor, answered to them and had to kiss the ring every year and like, oh, great one, and kiss the ring. And it was to a woman. So interesting. Basically circumcision. I'm not sure what you're saying there. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Got to be careful not to say her name. That's what got me in trouble that one time, I think. Yeah, basically my mom did that. Not sure what you're referring to there. It probably flowed with the conversation and was a few minutes ago. All right. Well, I think it's been 2 hours. So I'm not seeing a lot of other questions come up. So I think that's a good play to call it. I got 33 viewers right now, so that's fun. So I'm just going to go ahead and call it there, folks. Thank you so much. And I will see you next time. Be well. Much love. Take care. And step into your power. Step into your power. You were born now to do something great. It doesn't mean it has to be like world shattering, right? You don't have to be at Musk's or Trump's level. It can be great within your community, but step into your power. I'm throwing down the gauntlet, pick it up and put it on and make it the Thanos power gauntlet and start changing this world for the better. All right. Much love, everyone. Thank you and have a great day. Bye.